So yeah, this was not my intended intro for this video, but as many of you will have seen, a few days ago, I put out a Diablo 4 video, and well, it was an interesting reaction. Yeah, my lovely streak of getting just about 100% likes in every video obliterated, absolutely destroyed. But over time, I did manage to win some people back. The way that it looks now, the thing that you've just seen, it was a lot worse than that on the first 2 days of me putting that video up. But I think I won some people back around. But this is not going to be like a Steve defends himself kind of video. I'm not going to try and defend the mistakes that I made. I stand by some of the things I said in that video, but I got things wrong. The thing I want to talk about more is how I got to the conclusions that I got to at the time. See, I said in that video at the start that I was working on another video, and yeah, that was this. I was thinking about this video then, and it just so accidentally happened that that Diablo 4 video was kind of led nicely into this one. So I'm gonna use it. It's, you know, a happy accident. So let's use it. Let's go. Alright, so what the hell am I talking about? Let's get into it. If you've been online, in the gaming sphere especially in the last few months, you've probably heard people talking about game preservation. And it's become quite a hot topic. It basically kicked off when Ubisoft shut down The Crew. And everyone realized, like, oh yeah, these big AAA games that we buy and we play, they can just be turned off. And I think it was a wake-up call for a lot of people. And yeah, people want their games to be preserved. And I 100% am behind that. I feel quite strongly about trying to preserve as much of this hobby as we can. But I do think there is a point of conversation that I don't really hear being talked about that I don't have answers for necessarily. It's going to take people who are much more intelligent than me to come up with the solutions for this. But it is something I want to bring up anyway. And what that is ties in directly to the Diablo 4 video. So, I played Diablo 4, as I've said already, many months ago. And I had an experience with the campaign and post-campaign, and the game was in a certain state when I played it. And I had a good time with it, I liked it, and I wanted to come back to that game. So, many months go by, I come back, and I put the game on, thinking I'm returning to Diablo 4 that I remembered, but now with a storyline expansion bolted onto it. Wrong. I came to these very wrong conclusions because, mainly, I was coming into the game thinking it was just as I left it. It was not. Many things had changed, including my precious barbarian who had been nerfed into the ground. Thank you, Blizzard. So let me just set up the crux of the point to be able to sort of jump off of. If we were preserving Diablo 4, my question would be, what would we preserve? Because here's the thing. Diablo 4, it's my understanding, was a certain way when it first came out. When it was first released, it was a certain way. I played it later on. Now, if you come to me and you say, Steve, you really enjoyed Diablo 4, right? Yes. Do you want to preserve Diablo 4? I'd say, obviously, yes. For me, I want to preserve the game that I remembered. To me, that's Diablo 4 as I played it, as I remember it. The problem is, if somebody called Bob played Diablo 4 more recently, his experience would have been different to mine. And if he wanted to preserve Diablo 4, he would want to preserve the version of Diablo 4 that he played. Because of course he would. The thing is, if we went to preserve Diablo 4 right now, we could... The obvious argument, I guess, would be, well, we preserve it in the most recent state that it's in. The issue with that, though, is that the game is almost definitely going to change again in the future. So, are we going to have to keep preserving and preserving and preserving? Or do we just wait and hope that when we do get around to preserving Diablo 4, it's not too late? But I can already hear people saying, the thing with Diablo 4 is the type of game that it is. It's kind of like a live service game. And yeah, to a point. Blizzard have come out and admitted that, I say admitted, maybe that's not the right word, but they've come out and stated that around 85% of the player base play it as a single player game. But okay, let's just, for argument's sake, say that Diablo 4 is it's an always online game that cannot be preserved in the traditional sense. Okay. Let's veto away from that then. Behind me, I've got a Metal Gear Solid display. And that is a game that is very near and dear to my heart. It's a game that I played when I was young. Well, originally I'd have been 9 years old, 10 years old when I played it. Didn't understand the story entirely then, admittedly, but yeah, I love it. And the beautiful thing about that is, even now, in 2024, I can go back to the game Metal Gear Solid that released in 1998, and I can play it as it was. If we're going to preserve Metal Gear Solid, it's very simple. We know what we're preserving. I come from that generation where game preservation was easy in terms of what do we preserve. You know, when you think about the 80s, the 90s, going into the 2000s, when a game was released, the game that came out was the game that you got. If there was a big problem with that game, unlucky son, deal with it. Now, games would get fixed sometimes, but only in the sense that when they would distribute the next sort of batch of discs, a fix might be on those. But for the original disc, forget about it. Later on, obviously, we got patches. And patches, I don't think anybody really considered that patches would be used for drastically altering games back in the day. I think when we started using patches originally, they just felt like an exciting development because we could, okay, if there's a game that's broken and it's got a problem, we could fix it. But, okay, so games, let's say, that are always online, how do we preserve those? I don't know. Take something like Fortnite. There are millions and millions and millions of people who play Fortnite. I don't really get it, but hey, I am just an old curmudgeon, I guess, at this point. But a lot of people are having experiences with Fortnite. Experiences that I am sure they're going to value deeply, just like I do with Metal Gear Solid. And in 15, 20 years' time, they might think to themselves, in a nostalgic haze, I want to go back and I want to play Fortnite and see what it's like now, you know, just reminisce. And they're probably almost definitely not going to be able to do that. Because I don't think there's any way that you can meaningfully preserve a game that is fully online and capture the essence of it. You might be able to get a summation of it maybe with bots, but would they even preserve that? I don't know. And so we're already in a situation in gaming where preserving a game like Fortnite looks like it's probably not going to be doable, really. At least, again, from my limited perspective. And that reaches out to a lot of games. You know, games like PUBG, which are similar to Fortnite, but you get my point. You know, there's plenty of games that a lot of people have played, and a lot of people are going to want to come back to many years down the line and just not going to be able to. But alright, let's then look at a game that should be quite simple. Let's use a single player game. So let me take the single player portion of Grand Theft Auto 5. Grand Theft Auto 5 is a game that, at first thought, should be quite simple to preserve, right? The single player portion of it, that's what I'm talking about. But when you actually think about it, that's not even true. So, Grand Theft Auto 5 came out in a certain way. And yes, there were bug fixes to it. Alright, that's fine. But later on, GTA 5 got changes applied to it. One of the big changes that it first got applied to it would have been music. Music that was originally in the game got taken away. Licenses ran out. I always remember when I had started playing GTA 4 a few years ago now, and one of the first cutscenes of the game had different music on it to what I was expecting to play, because I guess the license had run out. So that experience, that game that I had played, had changed in a way. And yes, was it a small way? Of course it was only a small way, but it still felt wrong. But when it comes to like GTA 5, back to my example, the music had changed, but that's not it. So a couple of years ago, I think it was now, just out of the blue, Rockstar took some NPCs that were in the game for years and years, and they just plucked them out of there because apparently they were too offensive now. I always thought that was a bit strange, because I thought part of the point of Grand Theft Auto 5 was that everybody could be offended and everybody was basically open season, but I guess not. But yeah, like, if we're going to preserve GTA 5, and I think most people would want to preserve the original game in its original format. I don't think you'd get many people saying, oh yeah, let's preserve GTA 5, but with music taken out, bits of radio stations taken out, NPCs taken out. I don't think people would want that. Just as well, another example of a game that I played that changed fundamentally would be this year, Formula 1 2024. Sounds like a game, it's a racing game, right? That's a game that should just come out and go. Be simple. That it is what it is. But even that changed, and even the Formula 1 games for the last few years have all undergone massive changes in the middle of their life cycle. So, just to use F1 24 as the most recent example, that game came out with a very specific handling model. Some people liked it, some people didn't. Some people will want the handling model as it was when it first came out to be the thing that is representative of F1 24. Other people, though, I'm in the second camp, preferred the handling model when it was changed. People like me would say, no, I would rather the later handling model was the one that was preserved if we were ever going to preserve this F1 game. Who's right in that regard? When F1 24 came out, when it was bought originally by those people, they bought it in a certain state with the handling model in a certain way, and they liked it. To them, that is F1 24. I've had that exact experience with other sports games like FIFA. I've bought a FIFA game, and I've enjoyed the way that it feels, and then a month goes by, like EA will change fundamentally the way the game feels, or they'll change something about it, the game will feel like a totally different game, and now I don't like it anymore. And so you've got like this problem with all modern sports games where they could change fundamentally from what they are when they first come out to when they get inevitably changed down the line. And so, again, it's like, it's just not simple. Different people will want different versions of things preserving, but that's not really doable, I don't think. And I don't know if it's doable for a lot of games. What I'm starting to worry about, the more I think about this, is that there is, from my perspective, and again, I really want to stress this, my limited perspective where I don't really know much. It's just me thinking about it. But from that perspective, I feel like, as I think about it, the amount of games that we could reasonably preserve is shrinking more and more and more. And that makes me goddamn sad. So yeah, the conclusion for this is that it's going to take people who are a lot smarter than me to come up with a solution. Maybe some of you in the comments, I don't know. I'm not trying to pretend that I know the answer to this. I'm just really curious about what people think we should do. Because I think we're all in agreement we want games preserving, but how? Because it's not like we can just take a game like we used to and be like, that's the game, just preserve that. Games change. They change a lot sometimes, as I found out with Diablo 4. And while Diablo 4 maybe isn't the best example of it, I think what I had happen to me was at least a decent example of how preserving a game can be difficult because it can change. But I'm interested to know what people think. Maybe you think I'm an idiot, and maybe it's very simple, and I'm a fool. If so, fair enough. But I think it's an interesting topic anyway, and yeah, I'd like to know what people think. So have at it.